Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen. We're here with comic Greg Stone. Greg Stone, how the hell are you?
Oh, I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good. You were Greg Stone blue checkmark.
Oh, yeah, it just says
on Twitter.
that.
Yeah, it says that, but there's no blue checkmark yet. Is there more notable Greg Stones?
There's one other Greg Stone who lives in England, and he talks about English politics. I don't know what side of the fence he's on. I never understand anything he tweets. I retweet him all the time, which is probably horrible because God knows what this guy stands for, but I just get excited that he's like, the parliament is in, catastrophe. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, man, but you got the same name as me, so you got to be cool.
Yeah.
And I just retweet. So that's like the only guy I know who's another Greg Stone.
Yeah, I don't know how check marks work. Like if you had done, like your Twitter handle is Greg Stone _. If you had done Greg F Stone, you probably could have been blue checkmarked by now.
Really?
Is that how that works? Like, because you have Greg Stone _ and there's a different Greg Stone there, it's difficult to get checkmarked as Greg Stone.
I wonder if it's because Stone is, I make no bones about this. Stone is my mom's name. Coraluzzo is my real last name. I started using Stone for two reasons. I worked in an ER, and I also I had this comedy. I hate this because I have to get into this story. I can never tell people this and not get in. I heckled Jerry Seinfeld and thought he was gonna ban me from comedy, so I got scared. I just started using my mom's name. So because I did a show with him, and then I don't know, it was like a whole thing, and then I got scared, so I just started using Greg Stone. But when I was working at, I was a writer on this show called The Break. It was on Netflix for a while, and we had this lady who was like, I'm getting everybody blue check marks, and she got everyone blue check marks except me. So I don't know what's going on, but Twitter's got some kind of issue. Anthony DeVito is another comedian who's my best friend, and got a blue check mark immediately, even though there's 15 Anthony DeVitos in comedy. So I don't know what the deal is, but I don't really
also
care.
But then by changing your name, you don't have to disavow everything that got you to the point where you were opening for Jerry Seinfeld, right? That's a pretty good gig to be on a bill with Jerry Seinfeld, right?
This isn't that, and this is why I changed the name. I did a bringer show when I first started, and Jerry Seinfeld walked in, and so I'll just tell you a little bit of the story, even though I feel like a billion, no one's heard it, but my fans have heard it. So Seinfeld comes in, and at the end of his show, at the end of his act, he goes, does anybody have any questions for me? And then he'll take questions from the crowd. That's how he'll develop material. And I was a new comic. This is 2001 or 2 or 3, I don't know, around there. And he goes, is anybody any questions for me? And I had just seen Brian Regan, and at the end of his act, he goes, what bits do you want? And he does a show where you call out bits, and he does those bits. And that's what I thought Seinfeld was doing. So I raised my hand and I went, hey, Jerry, what's up with people who ride the bus? Yeah, man, it's really embarrassing. And
he thought you were heckling?
Yeah, he goes, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Weren't you just up here talking about nothing? And then my brother, who is a 6'3" guy named the Wolf, his name is Joey, but everyone calls him the Wolf. He's got a tattoo on his inner lip. It says persevere across his stomach. He's a huge guy, sweet as molasses. He's very protective of me. He says, didn't you write a show based on nothing? Which is kind of killer. I was like, wow, all right, fucking Wolf. But I was like, no, Jerry, I wasn't trying to heckle. I felt really, really bad. Immediately realized what was happening. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Jerry walks over to me, he gets off, and I'm trying to apologize. He doesn't care. He just brushes past me to where my brother is standing in front of the door at Stand Up New York, and he goes, hey, Greg, you want to fuck up Jerry Seinfeld? And I went, no, we do not. This is not what we want. Jerry walks by, gets in his $1 billion Porsche, drives away, and then some girl, when websites were first coming out, writes comedian Greg Stone, Jerry Seinfeld's opener, and I was No, she writes Greg Corluzzo, and I was like, I am not his opener. That is a thing I'm trying to forget. Can you take that down? She said, I can't take it down. Websites are forever, because she didn't know how to change websites yet. So then I was also working at a hospital at the time, and I was like, oh, I don't want these people looking at my stand-up anyway. I'm not good enough yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just using my mom's name, and I went to Greg Stone.
That is funny, because your brother almost played a part in you changing your last name, and that's the last thing you want to do when the wolf is sticking up for you. So cool.
yeah, man.
The wolf, I appreciate it though, bro. Yeah. All right. So real quick, I mean, they want to follow you, and of course they do, because the other day Joe List had a special that was out, and at the end he thanked a bunch of people, or a couple people, and one of them was Greg Stone. What's that about?
Joe and I are La Famiglia. Joe, I've been on so many war gigs with. I've opened for Joe for a long time. Joe and I've been friends for a long time. Okay. It started before he was. Our friendship blossomed before he was sober. We would just get drunk and do karaoke together, but we were just two guys. So I think we have very similar, not to sound like we're nice guys, but he is a guy who is constantly working on trying to be good to other people. And I think that we kind of, that sounds like I'm being complimentary to myself, but it's I think we're both two guys who are care too much about how other people are doing, around them. And we've done some gigs intense. It's crazy to be we've done some hell gigs that are outside intense. Meanwhile, that's all the gigs that are happening right now. So that's another thing too. All of the gigs that used to be horrible are now the best gigs, because those people who are doing horrible gigs know how to put on horrible gigs, whereas the people who put on good gigs, they don't know what they're doing. You got to go to old Jimmy Ha in Jersey, who's I can run a fucking PA through a Ford Explorer. It's that's the guy you want to do shows with now with COVID. But we've been through hell.
Was talking about at Governor's, they had a tent that was falling down. So if you know how to put on a good show, you're unlikely to know how to erect a proper tent, like Joey in New Jersey.
Yeah, dude, it's
crazy.
The
other people on there was Stephen Rogers, and Stephen Rogers was also on the thank you list, and Joe List is special. And you guys are similarly generous and coming on the pod, and it's so nice that you guys are like that. And everybody's got good things to say about Greg Stone and Stephen Rogers.
Oh, that's I don't have anything nice to say about Stephen Rogers. He actually had the entire world fooled. I've seen the real him, and it's gross. He's a disgusting dude. Me Too, thank God. That's he did not. He's not involved with Me Too. Worse, that when the murder when the hashtag about murdering people in dumpsters starts coming out, Stephen is gonna get his comeuppance.
He's only saved by the fact that the hashtag is too cumbersome. Dead bodies in dumpsters. Right? That is hilarious.
Exactly. People can't. It's just not fun enough.
He's got the panic attacking pod, and now we know why he's anxious, right? The bodies in dumpsters.
Yeah, man, these guys got bodies. No, I'm not going to do the thing where I go, no, I'm just kidding. He's murdered. I'm going on record, okay? Follow the blood. Don't follow the money. Stephen Rogers has killed people. And I'm not going to be oh, I'm joking. I'm not joking.
Yeah, and I hear him say he kills all the time on stage, but I think he's referring to what he did before the show.
He never says stage. He says kill. We know what he's talking about. Do your research, people.
Yeah, and you got to wonder what Joe List is thanking him for.
Yeah. Wonder who's missing. Follow the money, people. I think out of fear. I think Joe is just saying, because he knows what Steve is capable. He's one of the few people. I'm one of them. I'm a Stephen Rogers truther who knows what Stephen Rogers is capable of.
Dude, and Andrew Chavon, I mean, he's just kind of along for the ride, right? Is he with him all these times? Do you think they've kind of split a couple of those bodies?
No, this is what we like to call an R. Kelly situation, where Stephen has he's kind of fucked his brain up into following him, and now dude, watch the Epstein documentary. What he was doing to those poor women, Stephen is doing to Chavon. Dude, I mean, Jesus.
Dude, I had Maddie Smith on, and I don't know how deep it goes. I had Sarah Tolomash on earlier today, and I think she's covering for everybody too.
Really?
Oh, sure. I mean, it was I kind of asked her pre-pod about the Stephen Rogers thing, and she was like, I won't talk about that.
People are scared. People are scared of Stephen Rogers. I'm coming out. I'm not to say that I'm brave. Some people would say it. I wouldn't say it, but we have to.
Brian Regan, how do you get the Regan gig? Right?
What do you think he's up to? Who do you think trained him? Regan is murdered.
Yeah, Yeah, even Bill Burr is like people like Regan, like he was on Comedians in Cars. Bill Burr was, and he's like Brian Regan. Those clean comics, man. You think they're good guys? It's like, no, these people are fucking evil motherfuckers.
What if in like 5 years we find out that Steven Rogers actually killed somebody, and then I'm the only like people? Oh, Greg knew.
I think you're going to change your name back in that situation.
Yeah, Greg Corluzzo, right back. Yeah.
Well, yeah, real quick, we don't have much time for it, but the topic that I wanted to talk about was you mentioned nerd culture as being a topic that you could be interested in. Now, I looked at your picture, and I know about the wolf, and I know about your kind of inside dirt on Steven Rogers. It's like, how the fuck do you pretend you're into nerd culture when you're obviously just a badass motherfucker?
Dude, it's weird. I have collect action figures, man. I have like a giant action figure figure collection. And you kind of said this before the pod. You actually said that I'm a good looking guy.
Yeah, for a comedian, you're pretty good looking, right?
I mean, I appreciate it. I think I fit well into what these fat fucks look like who collect action figures. But I used to not always look like this. I used to be a lot thinner, and I used to rollerblade, and I used to be in shape. But I used to collect action figures, and women would come over. And like now it's definitely more acceptable. It's still not acceptable, but it's more acceptable than when I started. And I used to take every action figure off my shelf. I would like take the posters down, and I would just like, I had this like, women would come over, like I would meet girls, and I'd have to be in a relationship for like a few months before I started like putting stuff back up to be like, hey, this is who I am. I was like ashamed of who I was for such a very long time.
And were there tiers of people you would bring out first? Like, oh, well, this G.I. Joe guy's actually valuable, so that's why I have him. Like, who'd you bring out first?
Dude, well, I collect Marvel Legends, so it was always Spider-Man and G.I. Joe were my two big things.
And you could pass them off as valuable, right? Is that what you had to do at the beginning to kind of ease them in?
I hated that. See, that's the thing. Yes, in the beginning I did, right? I did try to say, well, they collect value, but that's just this cop-out that nerds use to just like, I collect them because I love them, okay? Yeah. Because I like, you get an action figure, there's like, it's like if you're having a bad day, I'll go into a Walgreens and I'll see a figure that I need, and it gives me this little boost of, like it just makes you feel good. It's a little bit of nostalgia. And it's like, for me, now this is something, I also am a big writer. So I like to have things that I can visualize, right? So when I write comic books and stuff like that, nothing that's published, but it's easier to like look around and go like, oh, why would Spider-Man be hanging out with Destro? What is that story, right? Yeah. And then that gets the creative juices going. And then it's helped me so much with storytelling because I'm a big storyteller. Like I love to tell stories, and a lot of it is fiction, and then a lot of it is, it just, I think all that stuff kind of, and setting them up, like I'll pose them and shit, and it's a little Zen thing that allows, it's like taking a shower. Do you, when you come up with stuff, do it in the shower?
Oh, dude, yeah, because that's when your background processes are running, right?
Yes, and that's what setting up action figures and all that stuff is for me. Wow. It's just a thing that allows me to get the back processors cooking, and
that's when you come up with all your good bits, and even some things that are inspired by truth, which like the Steven Rogers thing is obviously factual. Right. So it's not one of your stories whatsoever.
No. I mean, the Steven Rogers thing came to me. I was setting up an action figure, and I was like, why is he always hiding? And then I started to realize, I was like, oh, this, and then I started digging up dirt, getting online, right? Where he's been, following I go on his Venmo. Who's been paying him? How much for?
Yes, that's the fucking source, right?
Yeah.
Wow, like Brian Regan is paying him off.
What's he into, right? I'm not sure that Brian, I would honestly say, like, Brian might be scared. Most of the comedy community is living in fear. People were about Ellen. I'm like, Ellen? It's Steven Rogers, okay? Steven Rogers is a horrifying human being.
Yeah. I mean, they would get along famously. Like, it surprises me that he wouldn't have been on Ellen yet. Has he?
Has Steven Rogers been on Ellen?
Does she even do stand-up? I guess she doesn't do stand-up probably for that very reason, man. Who, you gonna invite some killers on fucking set?
You can't have Steven Rogers around people, man. That's like having don't go shopping when you're hungry, right? Like Steven Rogers being around Ellen is going to just get his juices, and then together they'll be unstoppable.
I mean, do we think any of the going out and buying an action figure or whatever, like it's familiar, it's that temporary hit of familiar and positive, like somebody else would get, like, eating food if they're a food addict like I am, or drinking alcohol if they're an alcoholic?
I'm sorry. What was that again? I was distracted thinking about Ted Bundy.
Thinking about Steven Rogers. I was thinking about a new storyline. Like buying the action figure when you're down, that momentary hit of nostalgia and this positive feeling. Is that the same hit that people get when they score drugs or alcohol or food, whatever kind of addict they're?
Yeah, that's what it is for me, for sure. I mean, my dad was an alcoholic, and I was straight edge till I was like 30 or something. So
yes.
I was afraid.
Straight edge, Joe. That's fucking amazing. Did you wear it like a badge of honor, man? Were you saying, yeah, man, I'm straight edge, Joe? And then when did it stop? Why did it stop? And has it made you more successful as a comic because you've been more productive and you were able to hustle more when you were sober?
Well, I wasn't. So to answer that question is, I was putting X's on my hands for when I was much younger, before I was doing, I was like singing the songs like I'm straight as the line that you sniff up your nose. But I stopped being straight. I stopped calling myself straight edge before I started doing drugs and drinking, because I was hanging out with kids who were straight edge, who were just looking to fight. And, like I got into a kid had we went to a party once. No, it was a show, and they were checking for weapons. So these kids I was with were like, hey, they're checking for weapons. We got to leave these in your car. And someone put a knife, like sticks, and someone had nunchucks. And I went, wow. I'm hanging out with people who are carrying nunchucks. Yeah. This isn't why I did this, right? So,
and then you get into comedy where Steven Rogers is there and he's wielding all of the above.
And I need to get nunchucks again to protect us.
But that's cool to know that, like, the kids you were hanging out with, it's like, yeah, you guys were against drugs and alcohol and stuff, but at what fucking cost, man? If you guys have to bring nunchucks to a rock show.
That's the thing. They were just doing it to hold on to something, whereas I was doing it because it, like, when I was afraid of drinking and drugs because of people in my family and people I'd grown up around. So it did allow me to have this backbone that I didn't need to create my own personality. It's something to hold on to. So when people are like, hey, do you want to drink? I go, sorry, buddy, I'm straight edge. So it allowed me that excuse.
Yeah.
But once I stopped being straight edge, I just kind of I just don't drink, because I was just like, I know what it's capable. And then there was 2 times where I remember drinking for the first time, and one of them was this thing, and then this other time was just a very simple stories with my friend the horse, who was like, just try this. We had a margarita, and I was like, it didn't immediately make me crazy, but so I was like, okay, this is a cool thing that I can kind of do and not take over my life. But it did allow me to, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of getting distracted myself, but it did allow me to kind of create my own personality. When I broke away from the straight edge, it was like it made me stronger to be not have to drink crazy, And I smoke weed now and I drink, but I never had a problem with it. I have a problem with action figures.
That's fucking cool. But I think you probably were. It sounds like you're not taking any of these things to extreme. Probably even, it sounds like even weed you probably have under control. Like, what role does sobriety play in kind of getting farther in comedy?
Well, I mean, for me, I didn't really see, I was drinking when comedy started to really kind of happen for me.
Okay.
But it's not so much of the sobriety. It was forming your own personality. What straight edge was able to do for me, straight edge did the same thing that rollerblading did for me, which is it allowed me to be proud of something that most people didn't like. Yeah. So it allowed me to stand up to people in a way of be like, no, I rollerblade and I'm proud of it. I don't drink, and it allows you to be your own. It allowed me to create drinking. This is what I tell kids. It's funny. I tell kids, I'm talking to kids. I told my niece and nephew, we were talking the other day, and they were we were talking about drugs and alcohol. And I said, the real reason you don't want to do it when you're young is because it's great. And it allows you to not have to create a personality. It allows you to just oh, you just drink and you do it. Well, because I didn't drink till I was 30, it forced me to face being funny and take risks with jokes without drinking, right? Yeah. And so now I could look, I think as a comic, I'm one of the guys, I do think that I'm more natural and able to talk to people and do real conversations and riff. And I think a lot of that is because I don't have a lot of the fear, because I've been sober. I had to build this personality and this structure and all this shit at a very young age, because I wasn't. And by a young age, I mean from 20 to 30. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. I love that. Kids, stay away from drugs, stay away from alcohol, because Greg Stone you have to develop a personality when you kind of discard the crutches. Like people who are
Yeah.
going around with the crutch that are drugs or alcohol, they can just kind of, everybody's laughing at the same stupid Beavis and Butthead cartoon because they're all high and they don't have to develop the A material that Greg Stone is known for.
And I mean, if there is like truth, I mean, like that's truth to that, like I do think that, but drinking is also, and drugs are so much more fun when you're 30, because here's the thing, right? You get to, when you're a kid, you do all this fun shit, like you're doing fun thing. You're playing hide and go seek. You're like, like you're doing all this really fun stuff. If you're doing drugs too, you're burning both of those, right? So by the time you're 30, you're not doing the fun stuff you did as a kid, unless you're mainly collecting toys, right? So that's when you start drinking and doing drugs, because that part of life gets a little like boring. So like, oh, you got to watch these movies as a kid. At 30, go back, watch all those kid movies high, and they're so much better.
That's another reason to stay off drugs. I love it, because then it will be better in your fucking 30s. Well, Greg Stone, like I feel like I learned something today, and not only about nerd culture and action figures, but fucking the real action figure in the scene, which is Steven fucking Rogers.
Yeah, he's the action figure.
Dude, I mean, he's fucking he's whatever evil action figure you got. I don't know, Distro or whatever the fuck you said. I mean, he's all of them combined, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I do want to say that Steve is a murderer, but I do love him. And I do love him. You have to accept people for their flaws. I am afraid of him, but I do love him. And if you see him, just be like, just know, like, have one eye open if you're around him, Put your wallet in your front pocket. Just take the precautions. If you're going to see Steve, take the precautions. I don't want you to not see Steve. See him. He's funny. He's got a lot to the fake face he puts on is a great face.
Yeah.
But take the precautions.
Yeah.
Don't go to a second location. Someone you trust. I'm hanging out with Steve. Just want to let you know. Like those. And then it's a great treat Steve like alcohol. Treat it with respect. Okay. Understand it's dangerous.
Yeah. Get your designated driver lined up. Know where your exits are at all times, because Steven Rogers is a fucking, he's a blessing and a curse. You don't know where the fear ends and the love begins.
Exactly.
Dude, Greg Stone, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.